Hello, dear viewers. I am a global nationalist and I support nationalism in my country, India, and in all countries around the globe. Today is the second Sunday of the month, and so I will be talking about the SCO. Today, I'm going to talk about a seminar held in India, which was the seminar for cybersecurity, wherein the member states of SCO discussed matters related to uh, terrorism being propagated on the internet and how they intend to combat it. So I want to talk about what I think these countries can do to fight terrorism. So let me begin. So here, the cybersecurity seminar and how the SEO can combat cyberterrorism. So the basic facts of this seminar is that it was hosted by India. Before I go on, I want to mention some things about this PowerPoint presentation. Any sentences that are in orange are simply the most significant parts of that slide. That's why I've highlighted them in orange. And yeah, so according to the Indian government, the seminar aimed to enhance the capabilities of respective law enforcement agencies in securing cyberspace from terrorism, separatism, and extremism. The Indian initiative was an effort to enhance collaboration amongst countries that are part of the regional anti-terrorist structure, abbreviated as RATS, to counter the misuse of the internet by terrorists, extremists, and separatists. India assumed the chairmanship of Council of RATS in October 2021 for 1 year. The seminar was the first event to be hosted by India during its chairmanship. Why I've highlighted this is because this shows that since this is the first event for that India has hosted during its chairmanship of the RATS, it shows that with respect to anti-terrorist activities, it is most focused on cyber-terrorism. It believes that that is the greatest terrorist threat more than the others, and that's why it's significant that it hosted this first. And also, the representatives from the executive committee or EC of RATS SCO are all the eight SCO member countries: China, India, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Russia, Pakistan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan attended the seminar. This shows that it was a successful seminar. None of the SCO members boycotted it, which is good. And so I want to talk about the regional anti-terrorist structure because this is the body which is responsible for all anti-terrorist activities in the SCO. It was established on 15th June 2001 to combat terrorism, separatism, and extremism, and is located in Bishkek in the Kyrgyz Republic. Why I've highlighted this is because the executive committee which is the permanent body of the SCO-RATS, is based in Tashkent, the capital of Uzbekistan. This shows that the RATS, while it's located in one country, its permanent body is located in another country. This shows that the SCO wants to make sure that no country can have geographical supremacy of the anti-terrorist activities. They want it to be shared with other countries, which is a very good move. And so, the main tasks and duties of this organization are to maintain working relations with competent institutions of the member states and international organizations tackling issues of fighting terrorism, separatism, and extremism, assistance in interaction among the member states in preparation and staging of counterterrorism exercises, At the request of concerned member states, joint drafting of international legal documents, formation and filing of RATS data bank, and sharing experience in the field of fighting terrorism, separatism, and extremism. So, why I've highlighted these 4 points is because here you can see that they prepare and stage counterterrorism exercises at the request of concerned member states. This shows that they don't only work in theory, they don't just discuss with each other and prepare how to each individual can counter terrorism, but they actually work together and engage in these counter-terrorist activities to fight terrorists, which is a very good activity. It shows that it's not just um, theoretical, but the SEO wants practical activity against the terrorists, wants to really defeat them, doesn't just want to talk about, it, which is very good. And joint drafting of international legal documents shows that they are working on the international stage together to make sure that there is a common legal framework for combating terrorism and separatism and extremism, which is very important so that the whole world can understand who are terrorists, separatists, and extremists and can fight them together so that they don't squabble amongst each other because one country thinks that one group is a terrorist and another country doesn't. I'm happy that there's that at least for the SEO, they're working together on this. I hope that this can be other countries can do this as well. Now, gathering and analysis of information coming to RATS, formation and filing of RATS data bank. This shows that they are giving big importance to data from the net about terrorists. This shows that each of the countries have developed IT infrastructure which allows them to collect this data, which is good. They're up to date, and that's how terrorism must be fought with the latest technology. And sharing experience in the field of fighting terrorism, separatism, and extremism. I highlighted this because first of all, it's necessary to share experience in their fields of because although they work together as seen here, sometimes they also work alone, and so it won't automatically be known by other countries how they fought terrorists, but by sharing experience, they can learn from each other. And here it mentions fighting terrorism, separatism, and extremism. Why this is significant is because in China, these are considered as the three evils of in the country that threaten the government, that threaten the nation. Separatism, religious fundamentalism, and terrorism. Religious fundamentalism in China is often considered equivalent to extremism. So this shows that the RATS's understanding of terrorism and of anti-national activities in general is similar to the Chinese equivalent. It shows how much influence China has on the RATS and the SEO as a whole. So, what was discussed in this seminar? This is what the Indian government said. I could not find what other governments said about this, so I couldn't include them. The government said that the program focused on the changing nature of online crime and criminal behavior in order to understand the threats, trends, issues, responses, and ethical questions associated with mainly terrorists using technology. Why I've highlighted ethical questions is because it relates to, it rather refers to the legal aspects of countering terrorism online because people, when they're online, are engaging with online services in a private capacity and don't want the government to spy on them. Now, the government's responsibility in this case is to make sure that they can counter terrorists without violating the privacy and data rights of the innocent citizens. And even with terrorists, there's ethical questions about how much you can intrude onto their lives, how much you can spy on them. So, yeah, I'm glad that these countries are discussing this. This can also prevent the governments from forcing social media companies to censor people who have just who have anti-government thoughts, but the governments claim that these anti-government ideas are in fact extremist and so should be banned. I'm hopefully I'm hopeful that this can be resolved to make sure that the governments are not allowed to censor their citizens through social media. I hope, especially with a communist country like China, I hope that they can give more freedom to their citizens and privacy. The government also said that they examined issues related to the cyber realm from an interdisciplinary and multidimensional perspective. This means that it wasn't just focused on a security uh, perspective, which is the main discipline and dimension from which terrorism is acted against, but also took in other disciplines such as sociology, political and religious nature, and economics. They wanted to make sure that they understood how terrorism was happening, what is causing it, and to make sure that people don't join or start terrorist groups in the first place. Now, there were also technical challenges during digital forensic examinations, which were discussed in detail with case scenarios. First of all, I'm glad I didn't know that there are digital forensic examinations are having so much challenges that they need to discuss with other countries. I'm glad it's being resolved and that they can share their forensic information to each other in case there's any cross-border terrorism. And these were discussed in detail with case scenarios. Case scenarios means that they're sharing the terrorist cases that have happened within their individual countries with each other. And so they're going to be much more knowledgeable on terrorism within the region, which is going to help them prevent terrorist attacks. Now, what cyber terrorism is? Cyber terrorism is the use of the internet to conduct violent acts that result in or threaten the loss of life or significant bodily harm in order to achieve political or ideological gains through threat or intimidation. Now, this is significant because this is the main definition of cyber terrorism that I could find on the internet. Specifically, I found it in Wikipedia. I know Wikipedia is an official source, but this is also the definition I found most in common other sites as well. So I'm using it. And the nature of cyberterrorism covers conduct involving computer or internet technology that is motivated by a political, religious, or ideological cause to intimidate a government or a section of the public to varying degrees. This is the second part of this is the main aspects that all definitions of terrorism that all countries use. Now, all that countries have differing definitions of terrorism, but these are the common features of each of their definitions. So it shows that cyber terrorism is not fundamentally different than regular terrorism, and so that's why I included it. Now, cyber terrorism in China. Before I continue with this, I want to say that I'm going to talk about the cyber terrorism within countries of the SCO. I wanted to get for each country, but I couldn't, and I could only find for the countries of China, India, and Pakistan. Now, in this, in these countries, all the text that is highlighted in green are things that are common for all the countries. Text that is highlighted in red is only found in this specific country that is being talked about. And of course, orange is simply the most significant parts of this slide, as in the other slides. So, on to China. In May 2011, the Chinese Defense Ministry confirmed the existence of an online defense unit composed of about 30 elite internet specialists. The so called Cyber Blue Team or Blue Army is officially claimed to be engaged in cyber defense operations. Now, why I've highlighted this in green is because is found in India and Pakistan. Let me show you how. In India, the police in India have registered private citizens as volunteers who patrol the internet and report suspected cyber terrorists to the government. And the National Counterterrorism Authority of Pakistan is working on joint programs with different NGOs and other cybersecurity organizations in Pakistan to combat the problem of terrorism. This means that each of the countries' governments are developing specific units and organizations to combat cyber terrorism. They're not just relying on the basic terrorism groups, anti-terrorism organization that they have, but are specifically creating uh, different entities for to combat cyber terrorism specifically, which is good. It allows experts to act against these people, and they're involving specialists from outside the government. All of them are, and that's really good. It'll because often people outside the government are more specialized in what they're doing, while the government is mainly composed of bureaucrats who are generalists and have wide general knowledge but lack specialist knowledge, which is why the private sector people, as found here in India and in Pakistan, is useful in these instances. Now, there are fears the unit has been used to penetrate secure online systems of foreign governments. This is significant because this is an accusation that has been leveled against China by countries like the US and even India. However, I have not read enough into to say whether those accusations are proven or false. So I'll just leave that there. Now, uh, terrorism in China comes from various groups. One of these terrorist groups supports separatism of the Uyghur population. This is in green because India has the same. Uh, Ethno-nationalist terrorism. This form of terror focuses either on creating a separate state within India or independent India or an neighboring country, or emphasizing the views response of one ethnic group against another. This basically refers to terrorism that aims for separatism, which is found not just in India, in China, but also in Pakistan, such as organizations like the Tehrik Taliban, which is a Muslim terrorist group that wants that to impose Islamic Sharia law on the people of Pakistan. And also, I haven't mentioned here, but there's the Balochistan terrorist groups, or also some people call them revolutionary groups, that are in Pakistan that are trying to make Balochistan a separate country, similar to the separatists in India and China. That's why it's green. Now, there were several terrorist attacks by. Okay, before we get to that, uh, these terrorist groups support separatism of the Uyghur population. Members of these groups are believed to have received training in Afghanistan and Pakistan. There have been several terrorist attacks by these groups in the 90s and 2000s, but since 2017, there have been no attacks, which is brilliant actually. And China, in its laws, defines terrorist acts done to as acts done to induce public fear or to coerce state or international organization by means of violence, sabotage, threats, or other tactics. And this is a definition that is also found in India. An act of terror in India includes any intentional act of violence that causes death, injury, property damage, and is targeted against any group of people identified by a political, philosophical, ideological, racial, ethnic, religious, or any other nature. So this is similar to the Chinese definition, and um, yeah, I haven't mentioned in Pakistan, but yeah, Pakistan government has similar uh, understandings and definitions for terrorism. I've also already spoken about this. This is something that is pretty unique to China that isn't found in India or Pakistan, where China hacked foreign nations. A Chinese state-linked in September 2021, Chinese state-linked hackers targeted Afghan telecom provider Roshan and stole gigabytes of data from their corporate mail server over the past year. This is very dangerous. It shows that Chinese hackers are interfering in Afghanistan, which will further destabilize it, which will be very dangerous for the people of Afghanistan who are already under the rule of the Taliban, who are already being very oppressive. So this just causes more problems for them. So I really hope that China stops this. And in India, one thing that is unique to it and is not found not in China or Pakistan or even in most other countries is left-wing terrorism. This form of terror focuses on economic ideology, where all the existing socio-political structures are seen to be economically exploitative in character, and revolutionary change through violent means is essential. The ideology of Marx, Engels, Mao, Lenin, and others are considered as the only valid economic path. Maoist violence in Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh are examples of left-wing terrorism in India. So yeah, left-wing terrorism is basically terrorism based on communist ideology, where by these are Maoist groups, also called as Naxals, want to overthrow the Indian government and impose communist dictatorship. And narco-terrorism is also, well, while it's done throughout the world, I could not really find it specifically mentioned in China or Pakistan. So, but I know it's there, so I didn't highlight it as something unique. And here are some examples of cybercrime in India. Uh, Sorry for the delay. The information for 5 lakh Indian police personnel was sold on a forum in February 2021. This data was from a police exam taken in December 2019. So this shows how vulnerable our data is and how governments have to work to protect it. And so in China, these are the terrorist groups. Now, here you can see most of them are, almost all of them, are the Uyghur groups because they're also Turkic. The Uyghur people are Turkic in ethnicity and to some extent, which is why a lot of Turkish groups are operating from there to make a separate Turkestan country there. This is in blue because it is also found in Pakistan and the East Turkestan Islamic movement. And Al Qaeda obviously is green because it is a terrorist organization that targets the whole world, including India and Pakistan. The rest of these three are unique to China and aren't found in either of the other countries. And for India, the Khalistan Commando Force, National Liberation Front, which is ethnic terrorist group in northeast India, Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Toiba, which are jihadists, and The Maoists, which I've already spoken about, and of course Al Qaeda's terrorist group, and Islamic State. Islamic State is in purple because it is also a terrorist group in Pakistan, and however, it is not found in China yet, so I can't in- highlight it as blue. So now Jaish e Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Toiba, or Taiba, however you pronounce it, are located in Pakistan, but Pakistan does not consider them terrorist groups. So this is unique to these are only India amongst these three countries considers these as terrorist organizations, which is a problem because Pakistan supports these groups against India. Now, in Pakistan, Serve Safe Pakistan is an example of the programs that NACTA have enacted. People in Pakistan can report extremist and terrorist related content online on Surf Safe Pakistan portal, and NACTA provides the federal government's leadership for this campaign. Now, what is unique to Pakistan is that it actually created terrorist organization. It supported Afghan Mujahideen during the Soviet Afghan War and subsequent civil war in Afghanistan. Now, you can kind of forgive Pakistan or excuse, forgive not the right word, excuse Pakistan for supporting and creating the Afghan Mujahideen during the Afghan war because the US was also doing them. It so they're both guilty. However, supporting them in the subsequent civil war is entirely Pakistan's fault, and only they should be blamed for it. Now, the terrorist attacks do happen in Pakistan. However, the current wave peaked in 2009, and according to the South Asian Terrorism Portal Index, terrorism in Pakistan has declined by 89% in 2017 since its peak years in 2009. This is all because of military operations against terrorists like Zarb a Azab. Sorry, my name mispronunciation. Yeah, so I said this as green because even in India and China, terrorist attacks have reduced. So it's a very positive sign for both all the three countries. So and here, these are the terrorist groups in Pakistan: Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, Lashkar-e Jandallah, Al Qaeda, Islamic State, East Turkestan Islamic Movement, Haqqani Network. Other than these three, these four are only focused on attacking Pakistan, or what the Haqqani Network did attack American soldiers when they were in Afghanistan. Now they don't. So, but America still considers it a terrorist organization. But they don't attack India or China. So I've ignored them or left them as single, not as part of the other three. Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan is right now in a protest or conflict with the government of Pakistan, and I will cover how that goes. I wish the best of luck for the people of Pakistan. And how now? How can these all the SEO countries uh, combat cyber terrorism together? I think by um, implementing what was discussed here, by uh, sharing forensic information, case scenarios, working on interdisciplinary and multidimensional perspectives, being up to date about online crime and criminal behavior will all be useful in taking down terrorist organizations. And I'm glad that there are so many commonalities between three countries in SCO, which are major countries which affected by terrorism, but all the SCO countries are affected to varying degrees. And I'm working on the assumption that the rest of the countries are not radically different than these three, and so shares most of the commonalities. And I hope that they can learn from each other and work together to attack and defeat and destroy terrorists. And I hope that I know that China, uh, while it doesn't support directly separatism, it has there have been some accusations by Indian armed officials that China is giving funding to separatists in the Northeast. I hope they stop that, because since India and Pakistan all and the rest of the SCO consider separatism as an illegal and dangerous act, I think China should work with them to defeat separatism. And I'm glad that at least the Al Qaeda is a common foe for all, and that they're working with private citizens, and that they have a common understanding of what terrorism is. And I just hope Pakistan stops supporting terrorists. I really, really think that that is going to make it almost impossible for India to work with Pakistan if they keep sending terrorists to India, cross-border terrorism. So yeah, this is what I wanted to say about this issue. So yeah, I hope that the SCO can defeat terrorism, and I hope that future generations don't have to live with it. And that's all I wanted to say. Before I go, again, as I've said before, if you want to like this topic, please click on this playlist to see other videos related to SEO. If you want to see my previous video, click here. If you want to see the sources for my information I've shared, click in the links in the description below. And thank you for watching. Vande Mataram.